Michelle and Breea Renee were the kind of mother and daughter who seemed untouchable by darkness until one quiet summer night they vanished without a trace. What began as a peaceful evening turned into a chilling nightmare, unraveling a plot so calculated, so personal, it would leave an entire town stunned. This is the story of a kidnapping fueled not by greed alone, but by betrayal buried deep in the past. On a quiet Tuesday morning in the summer of 2017, the town of nestled in Northern California's wine country, was already beginning to warm under the rising sun. Rows of vineyards stretched endlessly, masking the small, sleepy neighborhoods scattered between the hills. In one of those neighborhoods lived Michelle Renee, a 34-year-old single mother, and her 80. They were known in the community as polite, reserved, and always punctual. Michelle worked as a branch manager at a regional credit union. Breea loved painting and had recently won a local art competition. To everyone who knew them, they were just a typical family with no reason to worry. That illusion shattered on the evening of June 13th. Michelle and Breea didn't show up to the school open house that night, which was unusual. Michelle was the kind of parent who never missed anything. A neighbor later told police that Michelle's porch light had stayed off all night, something that had never happened in the 6 years she'd lived there. By the next morning, a coworker called in a welfare check when Michelle didn't arrive at work and didn't respond to messages. When deputies forced their way into the house, they found the place eerily untouched. No signs of struggle, but an eaten dinner still on the table and Brea's backpack sitting near the front door. There were no notes, no broken windows, no evidence of forced entry. It was as if they had simply vanished into thin air. The only oddity was a faint smell of latex and a small smear of mud on the kitchen floor. Crime scene techs swabbed for DNA, but there were no hits in any. The investigation quickly escalated. Local authorities set up checkpoints, and search teams combed the hills. Michelle's phone pinged only once, saying odd blip about 11 miles west of near a forested area known as Carson's Hollow, but the signal cut out seconds later. When searchers scoured the area, they found nothing. No tire tracks, no discarded items, no sign of the mother and daughter. 3 days passed. Panic set in. Then, on the fourth morning, Michelle stumbled into a rural gas station, barefoot, dirty, and visibly shaken. Breea was with her, frightened but unharmed. The woman behind the counter called 911, and within minutes, the station was swarming with emergency responders. Michelle's account of what had happened over those missing days stunned even the most seasoned detectives. She said 2 men had entered her home on the night of June 13th while she and Breea were watching TV. They wore masks and gloves, and they carried tasers. They tied her up, placed a blindfold over her eyes, and took Breea separately. She was told if she didn't cooperate, they would hurt her daughter. Then they drove for what felt like hours. Michelle believed they took back roads, gravel crunching under tires. No traffic sounds. Eventually, they arrived at what Michelle described as an underground room, cement walls, no windows, a metal door with a latch. She was kept there alone for almost 2 days, only hearing muffled sounds of Breea in a different room. The captors gave no names, no reasons. Then on the third night, one of the men entered the room with a strange offer. He handed Michelle a phone and told her to access a bank's secure network. She was to transfer funds for $180,000 to an untraceable offshore account. If she refused, she'd never see Breea again. Michelle agreed. She used the bank's online portal through a remote server the men had set up. She did everything they asked, knowing her daughter's life depended on it. Once the transaction was complete, they left her alone again. Hours later, she heard arguing outside the room, 2 voices, one angrier than the other, then silent. That's when Michelle realized something had gone wrong. She kicked at the door until the latch gave way. The underground space was part of an old wine cellar beneath an abandoned farmhouse. She found Breea asleep in a side room, unharmed. The kidnappers were gone. They walked for hours until they reached the gas station. Detectives launched a federal investigation. The wire transfer had, in fact, gone through. The account belonged to a shell company registered in Belize, with layers of obfuscation designed to make tracing impossible. But one mistake undid the entire operation. A partial fingerprint lifted from the computer Michelle had used matched a man named Derek Holman, a former IT consultant and disgraced bank employee with a history of fraud and identity theft. When the FBI raided his last known residence in Nevada, they found something shocking: an entire room dedicated to surveillance footage of Michelle's photos, license plate logs, even a crude layout of her home. Holman had been watching her for months, but Holman wasn't alone. Forensic accounting revealed that the shell company used in the heist was connected to a woman named Rachel Vance, Michelle's former co-worker. She had been fired 2 years earlier after Michelle reported her for misconduct. Investigators believe she orchestrated the plan, feeding Holman everything he needed to carry out the abduction. Rachel fled the country the day before Michelle and Breea were found. Authorities believe she's somewhere in South America, but she remains at large to this day. Holman was arrested and charged with kidnapping, extortion, and conspiracy. He accepted a plea deal and was sentenced to 30 years without parole. But even under questioning, he never admitted where Rachel had gone or whether she planned other crimes. The kidnapping of Michelle and Breea Renee shocked the peaceful town of Elridge and left a chilling message that sometimes the threat doesn't come from strangers, but from those we once trusted. Though Michelle and Breea survived, their lives were forever changed by a crime plan, not in rage or desperation, but with cold calculation and revenge.